Holy City Center Radio, it is episode 110, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Monday, April 17th, 2023. Hope you had a great weekend. Unfortunately for me, been feeling a little under the weather. Nothing serious, just, a little crappy this weekend, and sadly prevented me from being able to go to High Water Fest. Was looking forward to it. Some big acts were performing, and unfortunately, I had to miss this year's festival, just not feeling up to it. But you know what? It's okay. These things happen. But it does look like everyone had an awesome time. Weather was incredible all weekend. Seeing pictures on social media, looks like everybody was having a good time. The big highlight from the first day, anyway, was that Bleachers performed as expected, and the band brought out Lana Del Rey. It was a surprise guest performance, which is pretty wild that they were able to sneak that pretty big star in and have her perform just, with them for a few songs. It was must have been quite the thrill for the folks that were there. And yeah, it's bummed I missed it and the whole festival itself. But hey, like I said, these things happen. Seems like something's going around. I've got a few friends who have said they've been sick lately or are currently sick. And hopefully you all are staying away from the yuck that is out there. All right, let's get into the news here on this episode. All right, we're going to start with a report that came out. Most recent data shows a significant increase in South Carolina's infant and maternal mortality rates. The South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control, also known as DHEC, released data this past Wednesday showing a 12% increase in the state's infant mortality rate from 2020 to 2021. The data also showed the mortality rate has grown by almost 40% since 2017 for infants born to non-Hispanic Black mothers. In addition to this big increase in the infant mortality rate here in South Carolina, DHEC also reported an increase in pregnancy-related deaths from 2019. The reason it's 2019, that's when the most recent data is available. So, of course, a lot of people want to know the reasons. Why is this going up? There's, any number of possibilities, of course, and it will take probably a deep dive by experts. But one thing that we are aware of is that African American communities tend to lack resources, that they need for family planning. That leaves families with no options or very few options for pregnancy care. In fact, something that many of you are probably aware of, there are 14 counties in the state that do not have an OBGYN. Counties, entire counties, 14 of them in South Carolina do not have OBGYN practices or any help in that realm. And that's a pretty clear reason why we might be seeing these rates go up. So very, very concerning report for sure, and just further, reminds us of how much work we still have to do in other parts of the state. Moving on, according to the Anti-Defamation League, anti-Semitic incidents in the United States reached an all-time high last year. South Carolina saw an increase in reported incidents from 2021 to 2022 as well. Brandon Fish, who is with the Charleston Jewish Federation, said some of those incidents involved anti-Semitic flyers, graffiti, and harassment in public or on social media. Fish said that they're doing a better job of documenting these incidents. It's difficult in the state because there is no state hate crimes law, which we've talked about on this podcast before. But Fish says they're doing a better job of encouraging the community to report these types of incidents so they can track them better. Last week, a House Judiciary Subcommittee advanced a bill that would define anti-Semitism in the state codes of law. The bill's sponsor, Representative Beth Bernstein from Richland, she's a Democrat, is the only Jewish member of the South Carolina General Assembly. She said that despite such surging anti-Semitism, research shows that 50% of Americans do not even know what anti-Semitism is. That is wild to me, especially with how prevalent it's always been in history, but how it's really picked up, especially on social media platforms like Twitter. The legislation that was proposed would adopt into state law the definition for anti-Semitism established by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance in 2016. Supporters say that this would help identify illegal discrimination targeting Jewish people, and Fish said that more than 20 states have already adopted this. The full House Judiciary Committee is expected to take up the bill soon. If they approve it, the legislation would then be sent to the floor. We've talked about hate crime laws previously. I'm not going to get all back into it now. South Carolina is one of only 2 states that doesn't have any on the books. They've been trying to get it passed. It's still in the works. It keeps getting held up for a variety of reasons. But this report shows just anti-Semitism alone, forget any other types of discrimination, is on the rise. And it's something that needs to be confronted. And the best way to confront these issues and to figure out the best ways to combat it is to have data and information, and reporting incidents that are hate-based helps with that. So glad that we are moving forward and trying to find a way to combat this very horrible problem we have in the state and in this country. Sticking in the state house, the South Carolina Senate has passed a major bond reform bill, and it includes significant changes to the South Carolina's legal system if it's passed, of course. It will make it much more challenging for repeat violent crime offenders to get released on bond while waiting for trial. This bill only impacts defendants with violent criminal charges or charges of a felony involving a gun. If such a defendant commits another violent offense while out on bond, that bond would then be revoked. Following passage in the South Carolina House and Senate, the bill will go to a conference committee this week before it reaches the desk of Governor Henry McMaster. You may remember after the shooting on Isle of Palms, Governor McMaster held a press conference, and this was one of the things he discussed. They talk about the revolving door of, criminals getting out of jail and committing more crimes. And so this was something that he pushed for. And as you can see, the Senate and House have listened to that call and went ahead and tried to get this passed. And it appears it is well on its way to be signed by the governor and becoming law. Some sad news out on Wadmalaw Island. Back on April 3rd, 2 miniature pet pigs were shot at their home, leaving one of them dead. According to the Charleston Animal Society, the 2 pigs, named Alfie and Petunia, were indoor-outdoor pets who spent time cuddling on their owner's couch with her. I mean, these sound like dogs. I've heard that with pigs before. For people who do have them as pets, but just so sad, that someone would want to harm them. According to the pig's owner, Alfie died after being shot in the head. Petunia is thankfully recovering from her wounds to her leg. The shootings are being investigated by the Charleston County Sheriff's Office, but so far there has been no suspect arrested or named. Charleston Animal Society says they are offering a $5,000 reward for information that leads to the arrest and felony conviction of those involved. If you do have information, make sure you call Charleston County Sheriff Office at 843 554 2440. Just a sad story. And, we talk about gun violence in this country, of course, and we're always talking about humans, but here's an example of some horrible human shooting someone's pet. Just unthinkable and just horrific. Hopefully, someone will be held accountable for that. And so, again, if any of you have information on it, be sure to call the Charleston County Sheriff Office. Lastly, we're going to talk here about some good news coming out of bad news. The opioid crisis, as we are all well aware of, is horrible in this country. And there have been some lawsuits against the companies that push some of these drugs and didn't. You're well aware of it. I don't need to get into a ton of details with you. But the good news that came out of it is some help is on the way from people who are struggling. Charleston County mentioned earlier this week that it has received about $900,000 as part of a $26 billion national opioid settlement. The county said that the money will be spent on expanding treatment and prevention programs. So very happy to hear that. Obviously wish we didn't have to have that, and that the settlement didn't come about because of the horrible things that have happened to people. But thankfully, some money is here, and it will help expand these programs to hopefully, get people the treatment they need and the help they need, and also get the word out about preventing people from getting addicted to these. For a full list of the different programs that the county is going to put that money into, check the show notes. You can get more information on all stories, including this one. But yeah, there are a lot of specifics in there, and I encourage you to check it out because it sounds like it's a lot of good work that the county will be able to do with that money. So that'll do it for this episode. Look at this, just flying through. Much shorter episode than normal, and we still got multiple stories in there for you. I told you we had a lot to get to on Friday, and there we go, cleaning up the leftover news from last week. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. The next episode comes out on Wednesday. You don't want to miss that. You don't want to get behind on the news, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. And while you're there, or if you haven't already, please just like the podcast, rate it, review it, whatever the platform you're listening on allows. Please do so. It helps get the word out. You can also help by going to holycitycenter.com/shop to pick up some merchandise. There may be some new merchandise on the way, hint, hint. You can also go to patreon.com/holycitycenter to help support the podcast through one of those tiers that are available. Thank you to all of you for listening. Thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins of LMC Soundsystem for producing each and every episode of Holy City Center Radio. And thanks to Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every episode as well. Hope your week starts off amazing and you have an incredible week ahead of you. I will talk to you on Wednesday. Until then, good night and good luck.